Welcome back to the podcast. So great to have you with me for another week. And I'm just going to share a few different ideas today around 2026 because obviously I do the planning for the podcast and record a few in advance, so you get them every Wednesday. And one of the things I've been talking about to a few people, and this is going to be a short 15-20 minute podcast just around how you can stand out in a crowded market in 2026. So with the world's fast approaching, 2026 is fast approaching, another year goes by so quickly. One of the things that I get asked a lot is how you can stand out as a business owner or as a sales professional. And one of the things I wanted to do is just talk a little bit about the way the world is right now in the end of 2025, what 26 is going to look like and how you can basically start winning in that space. And I guess for me, the big thing and the big factor in 2025, as we've all seen, has been AI. AI has been this huge, generational change in the way in which things operate. And everything I see now, every time I get connected to someone, I see some stuff and it's literally like, it's quite incredible, the amount of companies and things that are starting up that are AI related. And of course, look, I'm a big fan of AI. I see what it does. I see the impact it can have. But I also feel like I'm also a human being, and I believe in human beings, and I believe in the ability, especially in the selling environment, for human beings to still win the game. So, but look, as we reach 2026, I'm not going to make predictions. I'm a futurologist or someone that can make great predictions about what's going to happen. But what I can share is some thoughts and some insights of what I think are going to be the key things for people to be successful as we move forward. So the first thing for me is going to be authenticity. And what do I mean by that? I mean, the world has now become so AI focused. You're looking at videos and going, is that AI? You're looking at messages and saying that created by a robot or a system. You look at pretty much everything nowadays and it is an AI saturated environment. And the scary thing in some cases is that you're even getting people's voice or whatever being created by AI tools. But I think authenticity and being able to be authentic and be able to be yourself and show yourself is going to be one of the key things that makes a massive difference in 2026. And the challenge around that is that a lot of people say, oh, well, I don't want to share my life and what I'm doing and my story, and I don't want people to know about what's going on in my world and whatever else. And I get that totally. No one wants to be the big, look at me, I am. And actually, when you see people that, share stuff around on their cars or, on their big houses or whatever, people go, oh, yeah, I'm bored of that. But what you do need to do is to let people see into your life a little bit. I'm a big believer that people are voyeurs. They like to know what's going on, especially if it's with people they want to buy from. They want to have a sense of who you are. Because what that can also do is it can build huge amounts of trust. Is if people see your day-to-day life and the way you operate and see the way you exist, then it builds trust and awareness of who you are. And of course, it's got to be business linked to what you do. But I work with a number of organizations who sort of say, oh, well, stay away from talking about themselves personally or whatever else. And I say to them, I think that's a bit of a mistake. I think you've got to be able to be a bit more authentic. And I think people are going to crave in the next few years more real voices and real people and real scenarios and real situations as we get, I wouldn't say bored of AI, but as we start to just get a bit like, oh, it's AI, I'm going to ignore it. So I think AI is going to create huge opportunities, huge amounts of things for us. But I think of being authentic. So how can you be authentic? Maybe just start sharing things that you do on a regular basis, your daily things. What are your daily habits, good habits you've built? What are the daily challenges you face? What are the things that go on in your life that make it more challenging or difficult for you to do things? What are the things that help you achieve things? Just build a bit of authenticity into what you do. And I think that's something that's going to help you achieve the success that you want to. Okay, so point number 2 is this. I think there's a great saying that I learned a number of years ago from a guy that used to run a company called Rackspace. And he basically said this phrase, which was inch wide, mile deep. And I guess the point I'm saying around this about what do I think is going to happen in 2026 is I think if you've got a real specific, what I would call micro niche, I think you're going to really have a chance of success. People are bored of being generic. They want things that are personalized and unique and specific to them. And so I really encourage people to start to go a bit deeper in their engagement with certain type of customers. I know when I think about people that sell to me and engage with me, when I see people that start talking to sales consultants or sales trainers that have got a following of 5 to 10,000 people on social media, I go, okay, well, that's me. That's more relevant for me. Now, obviously, if they're able to talk about a solution, something they can help me with, I'm more inclined to listen than I am if someone says I'm going to talk to consultants or consult to trainers. So I think actually the more micro niche you are, the more chance you've got of winning. And I think if you look at some of the most successful shops and companies and organizations that succeed, they tend to have, and not always from the start, but they tend to have, a really good niche. And I talk a lot about positioning as being a key thing. And, I do an exercise with people and I say, if I said to you, the largest flat pack furniture company in the world, people would normally say IKEA. If I said to you, the car brand with the safest cars in the world, people would normally say Volvo, even though they're not statistically. If I said to you the shop that sells sausage rolls on the high street in the UK, you're going to sell me Greggs. So each of these organizations has built their position in the market. They're known for what they do. And I guess my question to you is what are you known for? And if you are in a generic space, the chances are you're going to be seen as generic, and that's going to basically mean your audience is going to see you as someone that's the same as everyone else. Whereas if you can become quite specific and quite targeted and quite engaged with a certain type of group of people, and there's got to be enough of them and they've got to value what you do and you've got to enjoy working with them. But if you can focus on that micro niche, I think it's going to help you get some success in 2026 when everyone else is maybe becoming quite generic itself. So my view is how can you build that? Look, this is an area that I focused on with lots of people, trying to create their story, their niche, their audience. I really encourage you to think about it and to think about what it is that. And when I started my first business in 2005, my target market was small businesses. And in the end, I remember thinking afterwards, there were 4 million of them, and I was like, 5 million of them in the UK. That's not a target market. What's the niche that you can create within a space that can enable you to be something quite specific? And if I look at lots of companies, there's so many organizations that have created small niches that solve problems that get them business. And I think that's where you need to be as well. Okay, so next point I think is key is your brand story and your differentiators. So I don't think it's going to be in 2026 around features, but I think it's going to around how people feel about you. I go back to this idea of human elements. And when it comes to AI is obviously not human. It's driven by the knowledge that is shared on the internet, but it's about robots and tools doing that. But I think your story and what you've come from and your journey is also going to be a really key differentiator for you as a company, but also as a person, as a salesperson or business person. And one of the times I was talking to someone last week in doing some mentoring, and we were talking about their story of where they've come from and what's happened. And they were trying to work out, I don't know where my niche can be and what I can focus on. And we identified with this guy that he'd had a story of when he was younger, he lived in a foreign country, and he basically was, come over from the Philippines, and him and his family had nothing. And his focus on success was driven by the fact that he had nothing and therefore he had to earn everything. And I was like, what a great story that is. Make that story your differentiator. Share that. Be proud of that story. Be able to to showcase how that's something that can separate you from other people, because it creates feeling and in other people about who you are and what your business does, and it creates a story that other people then want to be part of. So I definitely think your brand story is a differentiator, and it should be something that you share and be happy about. What mountains have you climbed? Where have you been? What's the journey been? And of course, it's not about saying, we've been going to 1788 and this is who we are. But just talk through it. Talk through the journey. Let people see what it is and bring it to life for people especially as I mentioned, with your authenticity. And it's going to open up people and it's going to make people want to engage with you rather than being in a position where they feel that they're distant from them and they don't want to talk to you. So look, those are things that I think you've got to do. You share your story. What mountain have you climbed? Where have you been? What journey have you been on? The good and the bad. Be authentic, share that, and you're going to hopefully get people to want to engage with you, have conversation with you, especially if you're sharing value and insights to your marketplace, which we'll talk about in a moment as well. Okay, so next point I think is really key is I think the question is, this is something I'm looking to develop a lot in 2026, is not just a group of followers, but a community of people. One of the things that I've wanted to do is to build a community of people that can connect and engage with each other and learn from each other. And one of the things that around social media is that we're going to see people that are wanting to engage and build relationships with other humans, because everything feels AI and technically, not so much technical, but it just feels like it's not real. So one of the things I would encourage you to do is how can you turn, especially as a business, your people that follow you into a community? Who are they? Who are these people? What are the challenges and common issues that they've got? How can you start to enable them to connect and come together and not just consume your content, but share ideas between themselves? Sometimes communities, I mean, if I look at platforms like Reddit, where you've got communities, or Quora, where people are answering questions, those communities generate huge amounts of traffic and interaction because people are connecting with each other and having discussions. And rightly or wrongly, we live in a world where views are polarized now somewhat. So we've got to be careful, not to spread hate and cause eruptions, but having different opinions and be able to debate those and to enable people to debate those is a positive thing, right? It enables us to look. So look, I think community over followers and how do you get people to engage with your content, engage with what you're sharing is going to be really key. And that's about asking thought-provoking questions, things that make people really interested in what you do and how you do it. Okay, so next thing I think is going to enable you to stand out in 2026 is personalization. And I think that's something that is, we've got lots of data that we can have and use that's going to enable us to engage on a personalization basis. But I also think, empathy is one of the ESI skills that I talk about that's so critical to have. Put yourself in the shoes of the other person. So how can you personalize and engage your messages to your customer base in a way that makes them feel special? And AI and tools like big data tools can help you with this because there are so many clever ways now to pull information from different sources and then share it. But I think it's going to be about personalization even more than ever before. How can you do the things that make people feel that you've really looked after them and given them that human approach rather than just making them another number on a list? Okay, the next point around how do you stand out is going to be about visibility. And this is something I see a lot of people when they, when they can work on LinkedIn or work on any other social channels, people are generally a little bit afraid or to do things very often. And there's a lot of comments people say to me, I see people posting around, what they had for breakfast and all this sort of stuff. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that, your authenticity is about what you have for breakfast every day. But there are some things that are, that trust still does take time, and it builds, you need people to build a perception of you over time. And they can't do that if you're only posting once every month because they just don't see it. The algorithms don't show that. I think it's something like if you're on LinkedIn or Facebook or social or some of these other tools, the algorithm will only show 1 in every 1,000, or 2 in every 1,000. So at the end of the day, they're not showing those common things. So I think you've really got to just make sure you're being visible to people. And if you're sharing a really powerful story, if you're sharing your thing that is a vision or a mission that's a passionate mission for you. For example, for me, my big mission and my big vision is to help salespeople and business owners all over the world get better sales results. So for me, when I look at it, and I think, and again, if those that know me know that's what I really, truly care about, I'm always going to do that because that's my ultimate gain. Now, but some people will think, look at him, he's just sharing stuff because he wants to become an influencer or grow. That's fine. They're entitled to their opinion, but I know what my vision and mission is or what I'm being put on this, what I think I've been put on this planet to do. Therefore, I'm going to continue to do it. And I'm going to continue to be as visible as I can to showcase and share ideas that can help people. So I just think that you've got to remember that consistency is key. I talk to people a lot about, anyone that knows me would know that I've been doing press-ups per day, every day for the last 400 days. And I do them wherever I am. If you play golf with me or meet with me, you'll probably see me doing press-ups in an office somewhere because we do 300 press-ups a day, and I've done 300 press-ups a day for the last, we started doing 100 and we built it up. Probably since February, we've been doing 250 a day, and then it can move to 300 a day from June. So I do 300 press-ups a day as well as sit-ups and squats, and I just do them, and it's consistent. And even days when I don't feel like it, I do them because I know I have to do it in order to make myself feel, and it's an addiction. It's an addiction. I can't describe it any other way. So consistency, build your, make sure you're focused on building your brand in a way that says I'm going to post, every day, or I'm going to post, 5 times a week to be visible, and don't negotiate with yourself, deliver on that. So, another key way to stand out in 2026 is to be a bit creative. And one of the things that people don't do enough of, I think, is to sit there with a piece of paper, and to get a piece of paper out and to literally, get a pad of paper out, a bit of a creased pad of paper, but get a pad of paper out and just start to draw some circles and brainstorm around how you can get a bit more creative with what you do. I think that if you add creativity and ideas and new ways of doing things to your credible credibility of who you are and what you are in your story, I think it's going to be a really great formula for growth, because people are going to want to see new ideas. They're going to want to see new things coming up. And you can create this based upon the challenges and issues that your audience face. So I think it's a growth formula that we all need to look into and take account of. Being creative is sometimes difficult because our brains work. We have a front part of our brain and back part of our brain. And basically, the back part of our brain is where we do our day-to-day things, and the front part is when we get a bit creative and we think about new things. And more often than not, we don't put ourselves in that position because we've got other stuff going on and we're too busy. So sometimes take yourself into a different area, or into a place in the garden, maybe, or in the conservatory, or another room in your house, or maybe go to a coffee shop you've not been to before, and turn your phone off on silent. Try and be creative. Try and start thinking, brainstorming around what are the ideas that you can do to help your audience and people in your industry do things, and come up with some creative ideas. And of course, you've got to be genuine in the way you do that. But if you can come up with some creativity and ideas, people are going to think, okay, this is really helpful, really useful. So, and I think that my final point around 2026 is, and there's loads of other technology predictions people can make and whatever else, but my final point around that is really focus on becoming a brand that means something to someone, not just something that sells something to someone. I think there's a lot of people who sadly just focus still on selling. And I think, I'm hoping is a better way to describe it, in 2026, that they're going to be surpassed or overtaken by those that actually have something that means something, that does something, that has a purpose, has a vision. I think we are moving into an era where the AI tools are taking over, and I'm a big believer, as you gather from this, in the human approach. And I think that be able to share your story, be authentic, be able to mean something to someone, not just to sell it to someone. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, as Simon Sinek always talks about. And I guess I'm encouraging you to really focus on what your why is and how you can develop that why even further, so that you can build something. And again, at the end of the day, of course, people want to be, earn money and be successful and all those other things. But look, those are the things for me that the future is going to mean to brands that actually mean something, that have a purpose, have a value, have a vision, that is focused on. And I had a client, when I was working with them, who literally didn't realize for a while how important what they were doing was to their end goal. And I really wanted people to see that. And I want you to do the same thing. So ask yourself the question, what does my brand mean to people? What do we mean to people? What is it that we do that actually has an impact in the world, a positive impact? And if the answer is not a lot, then that's fine. You may carry on as you are, but don't be surprised if people start to maybe choose alternatives away from you because you're not standing for something. So these are my thoughts around how to stand out in a crowded market in 2026. I'd be interested in your thoughts. What are the things that you think are going to be key? I'm not a prediction, as I say, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't predict the future, but I am looking at ways in which you can make 2026 a successful year for you. We are moving into a new era in terms of the way in which technology is evolving. And for me, what you're seeing from today is the human approach in sales and in business is what I think is still going to win. When even though we use AI effectively, it's going to enable you to combine the two to be very successful. So as I always do, I focus on a positive story to basically inspirational story, I should say, to finish the podcast off. And I wanted just to share a story of a really inspirational story by a guy called Shamar Allen. He wanted to get guns out of kids' hands. And so he focused on what he knows best, which is music. And he created this gun for trumpet exchange program where he's, turned people that have got guns, who've got guns, into having a trumpet. And I thought about this with Shamar Allen, and I was thinking about sort of the implications of something like this. And I was thinking, what a great story of someone that is, is trying to do a positive thing with something they love. His story is he loves music. It's his passion. It's his mission. It's what makes him authentic. And he's trying to turn that into something that's more positive than people killing each other. And I thought to myself, what a great way of, what a great story to share and how he's doing it to make the world a better place. So Shamar Allen, my inspirational story for today. And I guess I use that because also we often think, we can't do anything, and can I make something happen? And, can I, and then, he said something, I got the first 4 guns exchanged over, and it made me think there was 4 guns that could have killed 4 people, and that was 4 lives that were affected. So sometimes the smallest things that we do have the biggest impact. So use Shamar Allen as your inspirational story. And hope it's going to help you achieve a success today and positive thoughts today and get what you want done from today. But as ever, my huge thanks for listening. Hope you enjoy it. Please do share. I read every comment about the podcast. If you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, social media, I read every comment. We are growing, but I'm still keen to develop and build the podcast to what I need it to be. So I read every comment. So please let me know your comments. Let me know what you think. If it's positive, if there's things you want me to cover in the podcast, let me know. But if there's nothing else, then I'm going to leave you all to it, to have a brilliant week. And I'll see you next week. And take care. Happy selling, and see you soon. Bye.